Hey,
Here I am.
everybody. Welcome to the Everyday Arborist podcast. This is episode 10. My name is Cam, and this week I get to host my good friend, Brandon Carmean.
What's up?
Brandon, you are the first interaction I had in the tree world. I don't know if you remember, but I was doing my ride along, and it's like I could remember it like it was yesterday. I pulled up with Tony, and I think it was Tony who drove me around, and you were
Probably.
in a river birch on the side of this house in Lenexa. And I think it was
Okay.
you, Ryan Dolan, and maybe John Roth was there as
Right.
well.
Wow.
But yeah, I saw you on that
Wow,
job.
man.
And then we went to another job. And basically, after seeing those two things and you guys climbing trees, I was like, yep, I think
You're
this is what
hooked.
I want to do. So
We were out fishing and we caught you.
you caught me, the big hook. But yeah, we go way back. We were on a crew for what was it, two and a
Started on the
half
scrub
years?
crew
Yeah,
and then we moved up onto the tree crew. So,
shrub
yeah, I'd say 2 or 3 years at least.
shrub crew with Cap Dan
Captain
Sutton.
Pudding Cup.
I always tell the story about when Dan was. We had this backyard cottonwood to do house clearance on, and
Yeah.
instead of climbing the tree and actually rigging the limbs, he had me get the orchard ladder off of the chip truck, and the orchard ladder, what were those things, like 25, 27 footers, or maybe shorter, I don't know. They
Yeah,
felt
we
pretty
had several
tall.
heights. Yeah, they were up there, especially with 3 legs.
Yeah,
Had that tripod. They were super sketchy.
so he climbed a cottonwood. It was decent size, and Lim walked out there, and instead of rigging, he wanted me to get on the orchard ladder and climb over the railing of this lady's back porch.
Oh, man.
And since because she had no steps, so the only way to get
Right.
on that porch was obviously to go through the house. And so I climb
Well,
over the
that's way
railing.
too easy.
Yeah, way too easy to ask to come through the house. And I was standing on the porch, and he was like, "All right, Cam, as these are falling, I need you to slap them away from the railing so we don't
Right.
break
You're
the railing."
Yeah, you're essentially the target.
And so
You
it
just
was
have to.
definitely within my first couple months, and so I was still completely clueless. And
Yeah, that's when you.
I was like, this must be what tree work is like.
That's one form of it. You
And
decided you wanted to be up in the tree.
so he was bombing those little cookies out, and I would just, I think it worked well for the first two or three, and then that fourth one just got a little bit larger because he was closer to the
Right.
trunk. And I just remember I went to slap it, and it just took my wrist,
Oh
and it was like,
man, uh,
hey Dan, I don't think this is
that's not
the
preferred.
good way. So
Yeah,
not
do
preferred.
it. Do it different.
But anyways,
Yep.
the shrub crew shenanigans. I'm sure we'll get into a little bit of that later. But Brandon, why don't you intro yourself to everybody listening or watching on YouTube, like where you're from, where you grew up, and uh, kind of how you got into what you do now.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm Brandon. When I grew up in Kansas City, born and raised here all my life, and I went to Northwest Missouri State up in Maryville for college. And while I was in college studying, I got a job on campus on the grounds crew. And I had a good mentor while I was working there. He was I think he was a certified arborist. And Northwest happens to be Missouri's largest arboretum. So they had some pretty cool specimens,
Hmm.
a good variety of species up there. So the combination of having a really good mentor up there and working on the arboretum and just being around the trees, I kind of got hooked along with my biology major. So they kind of worked together to kind of really build that foundation for arboriculture. So that's where it started. And then I had always wanted to work for the EPA. Um, that's what I wanted to do when I graduated. But I decided after I graduated and tried to find a job to find out that most of the jobs were either hazardous waste type jobs or like working in an office doing regulation compliance type of stuff.
Hmm.
And I decided I wanted to be outside doing something, working with my hands. So I found Ryan Lawn and Tree as a climber, as an arborist, and I applied, and it was meant to be a temporary gig, but I'd say it's still temporary, but I'm working on my 12th season. So,
The permanent
so
temp.
yeah, the permanent temp. So, yeah, it's a passion of mine. I climbed for 8 years, and I'm on my fifth season of planting. So, been enjoying that. I've been grounded, if you will. So, uh, yeah, so it's definitely a passion of mine, and love doing it every day.
That's awesome. Was that,
Yeah.
I can't remember what you said the gap time was between like after college and when you started Ryan. What was that like space and
I
time before?
I think I graduated in December of 13, and then I was working at Ryan in March. I
Okay.
believe my
Wow.
start date
Yeah.
was like
So,
March 7th, so pretty early on. I worked for
yeah.
my brother-in-law. He's got a construction company. I did that for a couple, like 2 months, and then I got the job at Ryan pretty shortly after. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it worked out.
Man. Do you, I can't remember the last time we talked. Do you ever rotate back with climbing at all, like every now and then, or is it kind of uh, a very rare thing now?
Yeah, it's getting fewer and far between. Like I started planting while I was primarily climbing. I kind of like gradually went into it so like I would help Spencer out in the spring and the fall and kind of picked up the slack in the heavy seasons, and then I go back to climbing. Um, and so every season that I've been planting, while I've been full-time planting, I would go back to climbing in the summer, in the winter. So that's been the rotation every for the past like 5 years.
Yeah.
Uh, so which is a hard transition, doing something that you haven't done since February, in the heat of the summer. That's a fun
Yeah.
transition.
Welcome back. Here
So
you are.
yeah, welcome back. Go climb this massive oak tree for 5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that's a transition, but they're trying to push planting through the summer this year. So I'd be the only one doing that. So I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse at this point, but I
Oh man.
definitely have that itch to climb.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I miss that.
Yeah, totally. What do you think you if you were to have some like takeaways from the last 12 years, what are some things that you have learned or like maybe looking back things that you grew areas you grew in?
I would say just my understanding of knowledge of how trees grow and how they adapt to the environments that they're in. So soils I've learned have play a huge role to the long-term success of a tree, and as well as proper planting. Um, I tell people about 80% of my work comes from replacing poorly planted trees. And that's, not something that everybody would know, the kind of the failure rate of uh, newly planted trees, but just long term. Like if you can't make it through the first couple of years planting a new tree, then, it's not going to have a very good chance making it 30 or 50 or 80
Yeah.
years. So I just feel like there's a huge need in helping people understand how to properly plant trees. So I educate every chance I get. So that's kind of where my passion is, and
Yeah. That's awesome.
yeah,
Do you have going back, you and I had a ton of fun together. You I would say were kind of like the humor on our crew, and you definitely
yeah,
lighten the mood a lot of times. You have memories that you look back on, whether it be well, like uh, you know us or a certain crew you were on back in the good old Shawnee days that you think of memorable jobs or anything.
um, Man, I've got a lot of good memories. I tried to make the most out of every moment, even if it was a hard job, it was a long day, something was broken. I was trying to find moments to, give people a hard time or lighten the mood. So
Yeah.
I don't have any particular moments. Probably maybe an iconic moment was when John and I were in the oak tree in the backyard, and you were in the
Uh-huh.
front yard tree, and we did our best to meet over the top of this house, and fist bump or just
Yeah, I think it was like we tried to at least like touch our fingertips. That was really
yeah,
cool.
it was crazy to work your way from a tree in the backyard to a tree in the front yard, reaching in the middle. It was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to put
So
that. I don't know if you saw, but there's like a cover each week on the podcast. I feel like I have to slap that on the cover or
yeah,
something. So,
yeah, I have a lot of good memories of climbing and pruning. So yeah,
yeah. I've thought about having John Roth on here too. I mean, he was like he has a different personality than you, but it was like you guys were a really good combo to have together and
yeah, we
you know.
balance each other out. I kind of liven him up in some instances where he'd be quiet or withdrawn maybe, and he would settle me down where I was getting a little too outspoken or too rambunctious. So we fed off each other pretty well.
Yeah. He had a
So
you and him both were really unique too with your like climbing styles. John was like he's tall and lanky and had this
he has the extendable arms.
yeah, I mean just like super extendable and he was always like I mean he was a fast climber as far as like he would do things really efficiently and fast, but when
Right.
you watch him move through a tree it was almost like every
He made it
motion
look
was just like
effortless.
super smooth and
Yeah.
remember when
Right. Because every stride's at least like 5 feet.
yeah, 6 feet more than a
Whether
normal
it's
human. Yeah.
with his arms or his legs.
Yeah.
Every stride is like a 5 foot span. So
Yeah.
yeah, he was pretty good
John
at it. He's got the
Johnny
right build.
Treewalker.
He's got the build for it.
Do you remember the names that we had on the headsets when we had it was like there was just like 5 or 6 months me, you, Ryan Dolan, John Roth were all together. It was like Georgia Boy, White One, something else. I don't know. That
Something like that. I remember the Golden Guys. Golden Guys. That was
it was with Jason, right?
Jason. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I had a name like that for our crew too.
I think all four of us that we just mentioned were on the job when we had that old red bucket truck, and Derek was on the job, and
Yeah.
that locust piece came out, and I don't think he had the porter wrap. I remember that.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, he didn't have any gloves
Wild.
on. It was a big piece.
And I think maybe you
Yeah.
and I had just gotten there, probably in like the spare truck or something.
Yeah,
And
we came in late and like he
they
showed up and he's I gotta
yeah,
go. Yeah, that was a bad deal. Came
no
back
good.
with mittens on.
Tony was like, "Go home."
Yeah.
That was
So
crazy.
the red bucket truck, like I've got memories with that. I almost tipped that one over.
Really?
Yeah, I got in a hurry and got that one completely sideways, only to find or hear Ryan and Derek calling out to me like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Because I had forgotten to put the outriggers out.
Oh, and it was old enough to where it would just let you go.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh my
it had
gosh.
no safety features. I was completely extended sideways, and it was on two wheels. I'm like, I just need I got a little bit closer.
I never heard about that. That is wild.
Yeah, yeah. I slowed down a little bit. Yeah, you gotta check for those things.
Yeah. Now
Supposedly they got safety switches on them, and you
yeah, they
can't
won't
do
even let you
that.
go down anymore. Yeah.
Probably because of people like me.
Well,
Oh yeah,
even at Chop, we had that an old orange Altec lift, and I mean, I felt like it was ancient, and it still had like the little lever, but
yeah.
old red
Old Red.
was
That's
an
where I
old
learned
girl.
it. Yeah, had the 5 speed. I was the only one that could drive it at the time. So
Man,
I was the dedicated bucket guy by default. But it was a good time.
yeah,
I enjoyed that one.
man. I'm trying to think of any other ones that were good. Um,
We had the White Lightning as far as the chip trucks. That one I tried to go up the hill on Blackfish and what is that? Flum. Tried to go up the hill and a guy on a bicycle passed me going up the hill.
White Lightning.
Yeah, White Lightning.
Oh man.
Oh man, we've come a long way. That was awesome.
And we had I remember the international we used to get from KCMO, and the mechanics were it would overheat if you went over
Oh,
55.
yep. And the defrost didn't work in the wintertime. I
Yep.
remember driving it back from Lawrence, and there was just like this tiny little hole that wasn't iced over, and I kept like scraping it to make my way through. That was awesome. So
Or
good times with equipment.
the big old red chip Chevy 6500 chip trucks we had,
Yeah.
and those I don't know if they would like burn through coolant, really fast, or we just never would
Oh
check them.
man.
But I know at least three separate times where I was just in a habit of like not checking the coolant, and yeah, it would happen like every year or two, and I would just be going down like K10 coming back from Lawrence, and
Yeah.
we'd run it out of coolant, and most of the time we drove by ourselves, like on like days like that, because like you had to split up and get all that the jobs done or whatever.
Right.
But I remember I was at like K10 and one of the exits before you get to Cedar Creek, and the truck just did that thing where it's like does the
Ding
stop
ding
sign, it
ding.
shuts off, and
Yeah.
it's just like you got to
That
like
was
use
my
all your
favorite.
force to pull over to the side.
Yeah, that was sketchy, man. That is a terrible design to just shut the vehicle off while you're on the highway. I remember we would dump chips for Larry's brother in his neighborhood, and he lived on a super steep hill, and we had to back up on his driveway on an incline, and so you're trying to dump the chip truck like
Oh my
down a
gosh.
hill, and I remember it was so steep that that light came on, and it would just stall out, and you'd lose your brakes. So it was super sketchy dumping there.
Is that was
But
because the is that was the coolant was like going too low, and so it would like
yeah,
not
it was
refill
such
or
an
something?
incline.
Oh my
It was such
gosh.
an incline that it thought it was low. So that
Wow.
sensor would trip it and yeah, shut her down.
Those were big enough trucks that it almost like, man, we should get some air brakes on these things.
Yeah. Had one roll down a hill one time. That was pretty early on without a passenger into somebody's yard. That was awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Thought
It-
somebody was in it and just pulling it forward, like to pull ahead so we could chip more,
yeah.
but it just kept going
Oh, great.
and it didn't stop. And then we realized that nobody was in it. So many
That's
stories.
insane.
The parking brake failed, so there
I remember
goes.
that one. And then we found out that if you turn that handle a little bit to the
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
yeah, which I did
So many
not
little
know until
quirks.
like my last year there, but it was like there was multiple times where like I think I got to go park at the bottom of the hill because it's not going to hold up here.
I love all these stories. The
Yeah.
chipper knives, you know how you have to take the block out where the bolts go into the chipper knives? Like there's a block underneath that the bolts go into.
Like the little
Well,
shim. Yeah.
yeah, like I was told from one of the guys in Wichita that you don't have to take it out. Well, I went to do it. Like John wanted me to change the knives real quick before our first job in the morning,
Yeah.
and I
Real,
decided
real
not to.
quick.
Right, real quick, real quick. And I didn't take that block out to save time. Well, as I finished it up and we started using it, we started noticing this noticeable ticking sound as we started
Oh,
chipping,
yeah.
and it got worse and worse throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, we shoved this like 12-inch log in there, and it just shot sparks and metal and fire out the chute, and it was just chaos for a short amount of time. Like those bolts were had just been backing off all day.
Uh,
and they finally gave out when that log hit it. So boy, you learn some lessons along the way.
man.
Big takeaway, what not to do.
Yeah, I always loved that sentiment that people would have of like, hey, real quick, can you
Right.
change these? And you're
Don't
like,
take
wait a
any
second.
time.
You do know that this is
You
this
learn
is
real
not
quick that
real
it's
quick.
not always real quick,
Oh man.
right?
What do you
So,
think your favorite if you were to pick a favorite neighborhood to work in
ooh,
in Kansas City? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
I'm highly biased to up north just because uh, I would say there's more money in the southern part of Kansas City,
Hmm.
the Leewoods and Overland Parks. I like the areas where the folks are a little bit easier to reason with. They're not so particular or precise. They're just happy to have you there doing good work,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be, exactly perfect. You're whether you're picking half-inch deadwood or out of a huge oak, or planting trees, and they have to be just so perfectly spaced. So up north is I like those neighborhoods. I always enjoyed Lenexa too, and Shawnee.
Oh yeah.
Um, minus like the Falcon Ridge, kind of those were um, not. That would be the other side of the spectrum, I would say. There's always those neighborhoods that you like to work in the least, but
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like
yeah,
I was just
Parkville.
trying to think of that myself, and I was thinking like not Cedar Creek, but not Falcon Ridge, but all the area in between. Like there was like
Yeah,
Larry's neighborhood was good.
yeah, that
Um,
was the next. Yeah,
there was what's north of the Cedar Creek on K7? Is that Kill Creek or is that the wrong
there's like Canyon.
direction?
Canyon Creek is on the north side of there.
There were some
I
pretty cool
kind of like the
properties
extension.
if you would just go like it's everything north of K10 but west of K7. There was like some cool stuff in there.
Yeah,
But
I mean, for the most part, I liked Cedar Creek type jobs. Like
yeah.
any properties that are really wooded. They've got some cool specimens where it's not just your typical uh, subdivision where it's clean cut. It's all grass, lawns, and no trees. So
Hmm.
um, Cedar Creek's nice in that way, where they've got trees and something to work with. They're usually pretty good people from what I've found.
Yeah.
So
I feel
yeah,
like if I were to go back to Kansas City, like for a trip and like be blindfolded, I could still drive all of those
yeah,
neighborhoods in there.
yeah.
Man, we spent so much time in there.
Driving around, yeah, you learn the routes pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man. Well, this week I thought it would be fun to cover a tree like we have with the bur oak and the southern magnolia. So, Brandon, your favorite tree, or at least one of your favorites, is the northern catalpa, correct?
yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. So, maybe let's get in, talk a little bit about that. Do you have anything that sticks out to you that makes it kind of like a feature tree for you?
Well, the feature for me was they had a massive one on campus up at Northwest when I was at school. And when I found that tree, I was just amazed by the girth of it. I never took a DBH tape to the tree. I can't remember how big it was, but it was a sizable specimen. I think it was probably the biggest tree on campus. But in the fall, I would collect seeds from around campus, and one of those was from the catalpa tree.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, I enjoyed propagating seeds in the fall. Um, yeah, from anything I collected. So uh, yeah, it's a cool tree. Puts out a ton of shade with those big heart-shaped leaves. Um, and after doing this for so many years, I've never done I don't think I've ever done any storm damage on a catalpa tree.
Yeah.
I've done some deadwood removal, maybe some structural pruning, but by and large, out of all the trees that we see that get damaged around town, I would say few and far between any catalpas affected. Partially it's because the catalpas, I would say, underrated as a landscape specimen, but so just knowing that is a good reason to consider it in your landscape is just its resilience um, in the landscape. So
Yeah.
pretty cool.
I would say so too. If I were to think about the storm damage aspect, I don't think I ever have, uh,
Yeah.
seen like a big broken hanger or like a wind damage on them. I would say it's almost like not as hard as Osage, but as far as like the wood fiber, like its ability to kind of resist and not just break as you pull or like try to cut it.
Right. Yeah.
Super impressive.
It's not super brittle, but not the most flexible, but it's pretty light. So if you've ever, I think I've cut one down before, but it's a super light wood and they grow super fast, but they're clean and they've got a really showy flower. A lot of people don't like messy trees, and I don't think I've really ever picked anything up out of the yard from them. Everything you just mow, so it's not like
Yeah.
sweet gum balls or acorns or something where you have like they won't mow. So
Hmm.
they're pretty clean and showy. So seems like
Yeah.
that's what everybody's asking for.
I was doing some comparison between the northern Catalpa and the southern Catalpa, and I found that, well, they have different like classifications as far as their names. So the northern Catalpa, let's see here, Catalpa speciosa is the northern Catalpa, and the other one I can't even get close to pronouncing for the southern one. But their other difference was the leaf. They both have the heart, but the
Right.
northern one has like the heart, and then there's like occasionally like a little thumb that will stick out on
Hmm.
the northern versus the southern doesn't do that. So I thought that
Okay.
was kind of cool.
I haven't noted those differences.
And then
Pretty interesting.
they also, when I was looking into it today, the Catalpa belongs to a family. I'll try to pronounce this. So it's Bignoniaceae.
Big
Yeah,
no Nacier. Big no
Bignoniaceae.
Nacier.
Yeah,
Yeah, you got it.
and it is kind of the black sheep of that family. Where so like I think trumpet vine is in there, and a
Oh,
bunch
weird.
of other
Wow.
flowers. I think maybe wisteria as well. Uh,
Very
but
different from a catalpa.
yeah, very different. That a tree would belong to a family of a whole lot of things that are not trees. But
It makes sense if you don't think about it.
if you don't think about it, but the flower is, I would say, similar. If you were to like look at a picture,
Yeah, I
you
think the
know,
flower looks similar. I can see the trumpet vine flower and the catalpa flower kind of they look similar.
it's kind of like a from afar. This might be a stretch, but from a glance, kind of like a buckeye flower-ish, kind of a column. But
Yeah, it's kind of almost a panicle.
that's what you would entitle that. But
Yeah.
I found a picture of the Northwest Missouri State one.
Oh yeah.
They've got it on their website, and it is huge.
It's a good size specimen. I
Is
haven't
it?
seen
I
it at
think I'm looking at the right one, but it's right by a
pond.
sidewalk on campus. Maybe there's a
Oh,
pond on the other side
is
of the
there?
picture.
There's a bridge close by, a walking bridge.
Yeah, this one just looks like an open lawn, and it's got like a
Um,
little cavity at the bottom.
that sounds right. Is there a building behind it?
Yes, a big brick building.
There's, yeah, there's a building right next to it. So there's like a triangle. It's in like a triangle walking path. And then, yeah, there's grass in that lawn and then the building behind it.
They have a pretty open canopy too. Like if you see
Yeah.
a majority of the mature ones, they've kind of opened up and not quite like a safari kind of open, but as far as like branch spacing is pretty, pretty
Depends
impressive.
on
So
who you ask. I
yeah,
have a
yeah.
catalpa in our front yard that I grew from seed that the only reason I'm keeping it is because it's a good climbing tree. So the kids like to swing from it's got like 4 leaders on it.
Oh man.
So they swing from lead to lead.
Oh man.
Yeah, it got damaged by deer, so then it like suckered out. And I was like, oh, we'll see what it does. So here
That's
we are.
awesome. And grew from seed, like you grew it
Yeah,
from seed.
I grew it from seed underneath my dorm room bed in college.
Wow. So like
Yep.
that's pretty cool how what was that? So that was in between the years of like
It's
2010 and
like
13 or
2010.
something. Yeah,
Yeah, it was like 2010. Yeah. So,
that is really
yeah.
cool.
Yep. It's a terribly structured tree, but it is good fun to climb. Yeah.
Well, if it doesn't have as many breaking problems, then it's like, well, a
Yeah,
terrible structure might not be the end of the world.
I keep reducing the codoms every year to give it some resiliency, but there's no hope for it.
It seems like it's fairly resistant to decay. I've never noticed like wood decay fungi build up on them or like a known to be like
Yeah,
prone to like heart rots, too bad.
I would
So
say a big pet, it would definitely suffer just like a silver maple. I could see that tendency. Like if you made a big cut on it, it would not be
yeah,
able to heal fast enough because it's a super light wood, and it
yeah.
grows super fast. But um, yeah, if you maintain them, have no issues with them.
We'll do a little quick fire on some fun facts, descriptions on them. So we're going to the foliage. So we've got the leaves are whorled. So they have
Yeah,
like a
one of the
kind
few
of a
world arrangement.
world arrangement on them, which I was listening to a podcast where the guys were talking about how that helps in the wind because with the world arrangement, it will almost like spin the leaf and help
Mm,
like cause like a damper effect. Just
yeah, I
kind of
can see
cool to think
that.
about.
Kind
Which
of
on
balanced all the way around.
yeah, which is kind of on a small aspect what the quaking aspens do, like with their one, um, their stems is they're square, and so when they catch wind, they kind of like flutter. So I guess
Huh.
the similar to them, the
No, that
world arrangement on the Catalpa is doing that same effect, but on a larger scale with its whole,
that is a very dynamic way to think about that.
yeah, it's cool. There was a guy at I don't know if you ever listened to the video, but he had a theory at TCIA that he had done a lot of research on trees' resistance to wind and dampening effects, and then also he did a data comparison on when rigging from a tree, leaving the top on versus if you were to remove it and make a spar and then rig
Oh,
below it. And so he hooked like all these different devices up to the tree, and it showed just like the ability for trees to use like the very end of a leaf all the way through the stem to the twig and shake their way to damper. So the result
and you
was,
can you can tell that whenever you're doing like spar work or removing a tree, once you take that top off, how much more that spar like kind of bounces.
yeah,
It is interesting how much dampening that the limbs do.
I think the
It's
guy's
impressive.
name was, if I remember right, Matt Foley. So if you guys are listening and are curious about that, that was at TCI Expo in Indianapolis, and I think it's right, Matt Foley, and he was a Canadian guy. So
Oh, let's check
yeah,
that out.
he was really neat too because we went to a bar after one of the nights at Expo and we were talking about his presentation. We were like, man, that's so cool. It'd be cool to see him again and ask him about it. Well,
Yeah.
literally, he walks in the door of the bar and we're like, hey, we were actually just talking about you. Do you want to have dinner with us? So he like sat down, had dinner, and
What?
shared like a whole nother hour and a half with us on just his experiences and his career. It was
That
really
would be
cool.
Yeah, that would be an awesome opportunity.
So if I find that publication, I'll have to share it with you because that was fun. So,
Yeah, check that out.
but back to the leaf here, like we talked about earlier, heart shaped and 10 inches long to 8 inches wide. So
Pretty good size.
large and in
It's a
charge.
faceful.
Uh, Native to southern Illinois and Indiana and western Tennessee and northern Arkansas.
Sounds about right.
So pretty good spread there. Mature height 40 to 100 feet. I would say 100 is super generous,
That's
but
pretty tall. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
feel
it's
like
okay.
it's more like maybe in the Midwest or at least in Middle Tennessee, you're going to see them more like 50s and 60s. But
Yeah. Yeah, especially in an urban environment.
yeah, we've got a mature width is 20 to 40 feet. It is hardiness zones zone 4 to 8.
Pretty
So
good spread.
pretty good spread. Let's see here. Growth habitat. It's a tree with narrow, open, irregular oval crown and can be quite striking in winter with bold, rugged outline. So,
That's funny that you mentioned that because I do remember I was into photography in college too a little bit, and I remember taking pictures of the Catalpa in the dark, like there was light. I think maybe the moon was shining through it, and it had a kind of an interesting look just because those branches
yeah.
grow at all different angles. Just the structure of the tree makes it look pretty cool when they're dormant.
Yeah, they've got a picture of the one on the Northwest Missouri campus and in the wintertime, and the shape
Do they?
is
It's
pretty
cool.
wicked. So
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of what Osage do, like the really old Osages. So
Yeah, definitely. Just those scaffold branches and looks like something you would see uh, deep in the woods. We would make a tree house in.
totally. Almost like a Winnie the Pooh tree or something.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if you've ever been to or recently been to downtown Old Overland Park.
I drive through there
They have
occasionally.
that.
Yeah.
They have like a food hall there called String Hall, and right next to it, I think, is the old elementary school, maybe, or some kind of. It was like an education building, but they have
Hmm.
a huge catalpa in the front
Do
yard of
they?
that place. But it's kind of hidden because they built that huge like the String Hall is like dining, apartments, and then businesses. And so it's
Right.
tall enough to where if you were going down, that's Metcalf right there, 71st and Metcalf.
Okay.
You wouldn't be able to see that tree technically from Metcalf, I don't think. But I'll try to send you a picture of that tree because
Tucked in there, huh?
it's squatty, but I mean it was wide. And we were eating there one time at String Hall and walking back to the car, and I just looked up and it's like covered in blooms and
Oh man, they're awesome to see when they're full of blooms.
yeah, it was really cool.
The only other one that can compete with it is the tulip tree as far as showy flowers. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, that is
yeah.
pretty awesome. And the state tree of Tennessee. I'm not sure if you
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
were aware of that. So we got plenty of those here, and they get really tall.
Man,
So
they get big.
I remember when
Man,
I
they get big.
first moved here in Kansas City, we climbed some pretty big oaks, and I feel like
Right.
for that region of the country, the oaks, pin oaks we did for deadwooding were like the tallest trees usually you would get in. And
Right.
so I was like, oh, I feel pretty good about heights and everything. And my first week at CHOP, they were like, hey, we've got a contract with TVA. And I was like, when you're first starting somewhere, you want to be like, yeah, I'm capable
Right.
and like willing. And the first week,
Feel
it was like
ambitious.
a row of transmission lines. And it was this lady's backyard that we had to remove like probably 5 or 6 tulip poplars, and easily each of them were like at 100 or something
Wow.
like.
Yeah,
And
so
so
that's another level.
threw the spikes up, and it's like, all right, here we go.
Get your
time
big
to
boy pants on.
time to put the big boy pants on. So
Yeah, I feel like 80 feet was about my threshold.
yeah,
Uh, but yeah, get up there.
when I talked to Joe Rainwater on Tuesday, he was saying that that he's afraid of heights and always has been. But for him, if he can go all the way to the top of the tree and do whatever he needs to do, whether like set a block or just go up there, he can go to the top and then work his way down. But he's got to go up to the top
Get the
first
hard
for
part.
he can't get the
Yeah,
hard part
that's
done.
interesting.
So
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Get the hard part done first, and
yeah, I hadn't
everything
heard of
else
that
all
concept.
downhill.
So,
That makes sense.
but yeah, speaking of the tulip poplar, I don't know if you listened to the episode with Benjamin Moore from Chattanooga Scenic City Arborist, but he is going to come back on and we'll do an episode on the tulip tree
Ooh,
because it's
okay.
like they have a really cool company logo, but it has the tulip leaf, and then in the background has I think it's like Lookout Mountain in Chattanooga. So
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll
yeah,
be looking forward to listening to that one.
they've got a cool company. He's really great. So back
Nice.
to the Catalpa. We'll talk about disease and insect problems. So you've got leaf spots,
Mm,
powdery mildew, uh, verticillium wilt, twig
yeah.
blight, root rot. I haven't heard of this one before. Cornstalk mealybug,
Ooh, yeah, I haven't heard that one.
Catalpa midge, and Catalpa sphinx. So,
I've I've had experience with the Sphinx is the only one that I can attest to.
so what was your experience with that? Because I'm unfamiliar.
Yeah, so they just show up kind of later in the summer. They're maybe like a 2 inch caterpillar, and they
Hmm.
will if they come with enough um, and strong enough numbers, they can defoliate the tree. We had one year
Wow.
that it did some pretty substantial damage to the foliage. It's all aesthetic, but they were pretty hungry, and eventually they pupated. But um, yeah, they were doing some damage for a while, so we tried to pick them off where we could, but I
Yeah.
kind of just let them go, just because that tree grows so fast, and those caterpillars aren't here every year. I think they've only been here twice in almost 10 years that we've lived here. So yeah, we just kind of let them go, but they
Hmm.
get big really quick, and yeah, they'll chew through some leaves. But
Wow. I'm reading
other than that,
here also a value to hummingbirds. So they're visitors to that and provide some nutrition for bees in early summer. So
oh yeah,
there you go.
yep. Whenever they're blooming, I see bees and wasps and all kinds of bugs. Also, assassin bugs too.
Oh my
Seems to be
gosh.
a pretty good host for them.
Yeah, I've seen a
They seem to
couple of
like
those
those.
recently. Those are kind of terrifying. I think
Yeah.
don't they have like they have a little bit of a stinger, but also don't they have some kind of something on their stinger that makes it like numb your skin or something?
Oh, I don't know.
I'll have to look at that. I can't remember, but
I haven't had one be aggressive with me.
let's see here. Common names for the tree also include cigar tree. So,
The gal at our church, we planted one at our church last fall after a remodel, and in the fall she noticed that it had beans on it, and she said, "Oh, great! It's one of those bean trees." It's
oh
like,
no,
"Oh,
the
great!
bean tree.
Yeah."
Yeah,
It's
so you
like,
got
give me a break.
cigar tree, also called Indian bean tree. So
That's where she
she
got it.
probably named it. She probably typed it
Yep.
in on this website. Uh, the Catalba, C
Catalpa.
A T C A T C A T A W B A. It's interesting. Caterpillar tree, and yeah,
Because of the
that's
Sphinx.
interesting. And
Yeah,
then,
the
have you
pods
ever
get
had?
huge.
Oh yeah, those bean pods. I mean, that's probably like
Yeah.
12 to 18 inches. And
Yeah, I would say good 12 to 18.
I can't remember.
Um,
Do they litter like drop as much as locusts in Kentucky coffee, or
they
they
don't,
kind of
they
hang
like to
on?
hold on to them. our kids
Huh.
like to pull them off the tree and beat each other with them most of the time. So the lower half is pretty cleaned out. But yeah, they make good whips especially when they're green. But they like to stay on there. They are dehiscent, so whenever they are ripe or the seeds are ready, like it kind of peels open from the bottom like a banana,
Huh.
and opens up and releases all those seeds. So there's actually like the outer layer, and then the seeds, and then like an inner core. That core is kind of hard, so there's like three segments to it, three pieces.
Well, don't they have like a? It's kind of like a white feathery material on the outside that like helps it catch wind too. The inner seed. Does it have
Yeah,
that?
the seeds are pretty wispy, I would say.
Yeah.
So they would spread pretty easily through the wind. So I'd say each pod could have like 50 or more seeds in it.
Mm-hmm.
There's just nothing to them. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but they just don't seem to make a mess. You'd think by looking at them that they would just be awful to pick
Mm-hmm.
up after, but I don't pick up any, and they're not littered in my yard. They just mulch up really well, and
Wow.
they're just pretty clean. Um, but yeah,
Man. Here's it says an additional note that the branches give off an unpleasant smell when crushed. So I haven't had that experience. Have you ever like crushed it up and smell the
it
stank?
man, I would say it's not a super stank, if you will, but I would say almost like if you crushed walnut and elm together. Like it's not as potent as walnut, maybe. Like especially like the walnuts themselves, they could be pretty sour smelling or
Yeah.
bitter, but and then the elm was kind of a different smell, but kind of somewhere around there. Yeah, not the greatest scented wood. It is no cedar,
Yeah.
but the only other
Man.
thing I thought about the pods is we did a job last winter on a big, well, we didn't do work on the Catalpa, but they happened to have a large one. And they took all of the bean pods and they scattered them across their path in the backyards. They had like a mulch path made
Wow.
just from the bean pods. And it was an interesting kind of texture, just thousands of bead pods scattered along a path. So it was kind of cool.
That is awesome. I can't remember. When do they start doing like turning like that brown color? Because they're like a neon green, right? The
Yeah,
bean
I
pod
would
is,
say,
and then
yeah, the ours are still green, so definitely later summer,
yeah.
uh, fall. I would say they start to turn brown, and it's not unlikely for them to hold on to them for an extra season.
Wow.
So I've still got pods from last year on mine. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah,
Well, definitely a cool tree.
yeah, they're
That
cool.
was kind of a fun one to cover.
Yeah,
So I hope you guys listening and watching learned something new about the northern catalpa. So we're getting close to wrapping up here, but since we already covered your favorite tree, like we do every week, you have quite an extensive collection of trees at your house. Do you have
oh yeah,
top 10
oh
for your
yeah.
little
Well,
at home nursery?
I've got a top 28. So when
Oh,
we moved to our house, we left six large trees, several large sycamores and a hackberry, a couple sweet gums. But since then, we're up to 28. So I find every
man.
opportunity to dig up trees out of other people's yards and plant them in my own. So my favorites, I've got a couple Japanese maples, one from John Roth, and then a ginkgo. I actually bought that one. I spent money on a ginkgo, but it was when I went to help out the Tulsa crew for Ryan. So that
Yeah.
was my souvenir from that trip. I bought a
Oh.
little ginkgo and brought it back. So it's getting to be pretty good size now. So
And is
yeah.
that the male that does
Oh, it
not
is.
have
It
the?
is a male, as far as I know. Yeah, it's been there. It's been planted for about 8 years. So we planted it when we moved in, and yeah, it's about 8 years. So
That's
it's getting to
awesome.
be a good size. No fruit yet, so we're hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah, got a butterflies magnolia. That's a pretty unique specimen too. So it's
I remember, I think I was there when you had that on the trailer, maybe.
oh yeah, yeah,
Maybe
that's
it's
a
probably
cool one
5 years
too.
or 6 years or something
Man,
you've
it
had
it
that.
had
So,
blown up. Yeah, it had some deer damage, and the gal didn't want it. We replaced it, with a fresh one. But I planted that dude, and it's pretty good size. So
man,
it's a fun tree. That and got two catalpas, one that I grew from seed, and one that was a volunteer after we removed our giant silver maple. So
hmm.
yeah, we got some unique specimens around.
Do you guys do a like a vegetable garden or anything? I can't remember.
We've dabbled a little bit. We're getting to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, we worked on a garden this year, but we had a mild setback with the weather, um, washing away all of the soil in our garden. So
Oh
uh,
man.
it was significant.
Yeah.
One time our neighbor's culvert clogs up with leaves, and we get 7 houses worth of water coming through our yard. So it kind of
Oof,
kind of slowed down those plans, but yeah, we're building her back up. We
man.
will rebuild.
It's crazy. We have, I don't know about you guys in Kansas City, but we've been getting dumped on with rain. Like,
Oh man.
it's raining again right now, but I think as of yesterday, we are 2/3 of the way to our total annual rainfall. And
Wow.
I mean, we do have a drought usually every
Oh yeah.
July through September ish, but it picks back up in fall and winter. So we're gonna have quite a bit of rain.
Yeah, I'd say bring it while
So
we can, because that valve turns off coming soon. It seems like about
yeah,
July. It seems like we don't get any more.
yeah. That makes
So
me think of this week. Thankfully, we don't have to do this project, but there's a river that goes all the way through Franklin, which is the city that I work for, and it's
right.
called the Harpeth River. It goes all the way up to Nashville as well and goes into the Cumberland. But there's a lot of trees from like previous flooding that have built up basically two river blockages.
Oh wow.
And so we went and checked it
Man.
out, and uh, we are partnering with a company that we send a lot of work to them, and they are going to do it. And he was saying that they're planning on like canoeing or kayaking like from upstream to the tree and trying to find a place to
Break it
stand
free.
on and break it free, and then also use like
Man.
a skid and rope to try to pull things out of the way. So his name's Zach. If they end up doing it, I'll have to have him on the podcast to like share about the experience because
Right. Yeah.
it sounds pretty wild.
Yeah,
So
that would be. It's like undoing nature, like it's kind of like a beaver dam, trying
yeah,
to undo that on steroids.
well,
That'd be crazy.
it's like underwater Jenga because if you pull
Could
one,
all
then
come loose.
it all comes loose, and you
You're
know
along for the ride.
well, it's this weird predicament we're in. I don't know like the full logistics behind it, but the Harpeth is a really big like canoeing and kayaking river. So there's our city has like multiple launch points that people can just like park their car and get in with their kayaks and go down. But if that's part of our park system, and so obviously for the summertime they want those rivers to not be blocked,
Right,
and so
ideally.
it's this weird dynamic of like, hey, let's at least this is what I think they're wanting is like let's get it clear before summer. But if you were to wait like a month from now, you would probably be able to like walk on the bottom and just like
Hmm.
stand there and cut it.
Just
So
like what's the hurry?
yeah, basically the hurry is so I guess people that are in kayaks a month from now can be like, it's such a beautiful river with no blockages.
Right. Yeah.
So, anyways,
Yeah, that'd be a fun
man.
project.
So, well, Brandon, it was good having you on.
Yeah,
Good
likewise.
to
Good seeing you. Good talking
good to
with you.
chat. we'll see if we could maybe link up with John Ross and
Oh
do
yeah,
an old crew reunion episode. That would be fun.
that would
So
be cool. Crew reunion. I like it.
crew reunion, and I think many people in Nashville. I guess I would close on this: is that many people in Nashville would thank you for the contribution of the word custom.
Custom,
So
custom busted.
that has become common verbiage
Yeah,
for
yeah,
many
fun
people. So
as it should be.
it's the ultimate
Nice.
way to kind of smooth out the environment. If you're like, I just broke something, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna step back a little bit and just custom.
Yeah, custom busted now. Supposed to be
That's
like that.
awesome.
Yeah,
Well, cool, Brandon.
yeah.
Thanks for joining us, and appreciate your time. And hope everybody listening on Spotify and YouTube enjoyed listening. Feel free to share with your friends, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. And Brandon, I will catch you on the other side of this recording. So
All
we'll
right.
see you guys.
See ya.